Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. India and China, meetings galore. First is the defense minister, then it's the foreign minister, and may just be that our prime minister and their president Xi Jinping also meet sometime in this year. One narrative that is coming out of China is that the border between India and China, so called, is under normalized border management conditions. Whereas India is sticking to its stand that there is nothing normal about the border, things are tensed up, and we need to resolve this. Let's understand from Lieutenant General Vinod Bhatia what do these two narratives mean, and what are each other's positions, and how do they see from each other's angle taking this forward into the future, especially this year where there's going to be a lot of meetings coming up. Sir, hello and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ali. Always a great pleasure to be on your show. A very interesting subject you've chosen.
Sir, it's about narratives, and nowadays, we know that how a person perceives something is 90% of the battle. What I want to ask is that the Chinese are now starting to sell this, the phrase normalized border condition, management conditions. What does this mean? Are they trying to now say everything is done, it's okay, it's closed? Or what are they trying to say, that this is how the border is going to be forever?
Yeah, I think as a China is concerned, they take a very hardened position. We still need to resolve a couple of issues after the forward deployment of 2020 April May. It's been 3 years now. But China seems to be quite okay as for the present status quo, as the present positions are concerned. So, what we talk of the status quo ante, China says, okay, where we are, let's proceed ahead and let the LAC not, come in between the normal relationship in India and China. Fact is that things have changed in the last 3 years. China needs India more than India needs China in the international forum. And China, I think, is looking to make sure that have it both ways. Actually, they want the borders as it is, because it's a question of face saving now. They are coming, they cannot go back. They cannot go back easily, I suppose. And the second thing is to tell the world that look, we are here. You have to deal with us at our terms. So there's a bigger geopolitical game which is going on. And in that geopolitical game, China wants India on its side, but it also wants to contain India in case India doesn't back China. So it's a there's a lot of I must put it that there are uncertainties in the emerging world order, and which China wants to exploit to its own favor. It is its use of its military power, its technological power, its economic power, and what China has done is on the LAC's part of military coalition, and it wants to continue with it, keep us engaged on the line of actual control, and keep us pressurized there. And we also have the 2024 elections coming up. I think it's even part of the political warfare, and we may see more aggressive behavior from China, and we're going to prepare for it. It is likely to be there, and if we are prepared, I think we will be mitigated, and we are prepared.
This is the whole thing, sir, that because now India will be going through, I won't call it internal disturbance, but India will be going through its own series of changes as per the election, which will happen in the next year. The Chinese would obviously want to take advantage of some sort of weakness that will come out. Uh, the factor that they want to normalize the border, sir, what does that tell us in terms of their narrative towards us? How do they understand what's happening within India with regards the India-China relations, sir?
See, if you look at India-China relations, we might whatever we may say, the trade part is growing, the economic part is growing. Uh, so, in a way, I think we also need Chinese manufacturing. China is the biggest manufacturer, and most countries may not like China and they may not like Chinese products, but they have to do business with China. That's the
Hmm.
world today. Whether it's the US, also interdependent between US and China, interdependent between Japan and China, interdependent, African nation and China, interdependent between India and China, Australia and China. We may talk different languages, but when it comes to economic relationship, when it comes to trade, when it comes to commerce, I think there's business as usual which is going on. So we have to understand that, and that is where I think China also realizes its economic heft and economic power, and they realize that everyone has to go along with China. And
Hmm.
China's quite happy keeping us engaged along the LAC. And sort of a little bit of arm twisting, what I may say, because China loves a little bit of arm twisting, nothing beyond that. Unfortunately, they are not going to twist really hard. We stood up rather well. And if you look at it, it's only after Vietnam 1979 that China has withdrawn from any other place. After they withdrew from uh, also and hot springs. And so they have withdrawn. It's not that they have not withdrawn after they. So I feel we'll have to still wait, and our vulnerabilities will be exploited by China. One of the vulnerabilities is the political warfare which China is likely to conduct in the mind space and try to impact the 2025 elections. Or try to not impact, at least threaten to impact the 2025 elections. So that is the beauty, and that's our duty not to get impacted. That's our
Hmm.
duty not to get impacted. We have to understand what China is doing. China would not like India to grow economically and politically. Today, India is a political power. It's a regional power. It's a global leader, and that is what China doesn't like.
The interesting thing that you're putting across is actually, you know, one of the things that one notices about Chinese philosophy and Chinese systems and Chinese thought processes is that they like the thing to be in their favor first before they actually do anything. It's termed as their she. Uh, they're they're more innately towards the factor that once I'm in a position of advantage, then I will do whatever I need to do with the country. Uh, this time around, they've probably met a match because India has probably taken certain steps that the Chinese did not anticipate. Sir. How do the Chinese start looking at an India that is now being reactive, is not keeping quiet, is being reactive? As you said, that their plan would have been to keep India under a certain span of control so that India does not challenge them on the world stage. Today, the complete opposite is happening. Uh, how do you think Chinese will change themselves going forward, sir?
No, China as what I feel is because of the strong stance and a very resilient response of India, China upped the ante at long legacy. It upped the ante for a period of time. Let's say from if I put the dates right, it's about 29th April to 4th of May to 20th of June. April 1 happened, and after that you find that there is no escalation. There has been certain games being played, like renaming of villages, all that sort of which goes on. They're building capabilities, enhancing capacities, infrastructure development on their side. The 600 odd villages which they're constructing on their side, habitating them. So all that has taken place. It's not taken place. And multi-domain things. We never saw a helicopter of the Chinese or the PLA along the LAC earlier. We see a lot of flying activity there. The drones, they have upped their high altitude warfare skills, their equipment. So they also preparing and not giving India a chance to. They're trying to match up to the Indian combat readiness along the LAC. Right? We should understand that India is fully combat ready along the altitude. We have advantages of our soldier. We got the advantage experience, altitude experience. We have battle hardened. We have been sustaining there, living there, deployed there for a long, long time. Right? It's not like the Chinese. They have their habitat. They come, they patrol 20 kilometers, come in a vehicle 20 kilometers, patrol and go back. We are deployed along the line of actual control. So that has to be understood. So that preparatory work, which is done with the dissuasive defense deployment, is already there. So China has met its match, as you rightly said, and now it's a question of face saving for China. China cannot now easily go back. It has invested too much into this forward deployment, which is done. So that investment has to. They have to. They also have domestic compulsions. They have to show results. They have to not tell the world that I'm not backing out because if they back out against India totally, totally, right? It's not partially backing out has been done, but if they back out totally now, there'll be other countries also wanting them to back out. They will seem
Mhm.
weak, and Chinese psychology and Chinese way of life is not to be seen weak. especially Xi Jinping. So that is, that is what we see in somewhere. You find their aggressive behavior in Taiwan against Taiwan. You find aggressive behavior South China Sea. So it is not linked only to solely to the LAC. They were doing it everywhere. Wherever they have involved in the BRI, most of the countries are now having a second thought on the BRI, including European countries. The African countries are not very happy with the money which has come in because that money has to be paid for in certain other things. And it is creating disturbances, it's creating turmoil. The nation realize that. But then fact is, China has got money to spare and people need money for development. So there is a sort of a disruptive behavior of China which is not acceptable. But then there's the economic muscle of China which has to be also factored in. So that balance nation will have to maintain. And India has done that very well. And I think India's we must be fair, India's done well. We also have the Indo-Pacific as a centrality. We are doing well with the Quad. Let's see how this, like you rightly said, May end we have this the Prime Minister going to Australia. Then we have the Chinese President Xi Jinping likely to visit India in July. I think 4th of July is the head of the state meeting where he's likely to come to India. So let's see how it pans out. I don't think anything will happen between now and then because that will not be good for the diplomatic relationship between countries. So let's wait for the July thing and the foreign minister already here. We have India has spoken very well. The Raksha Mantri, the foreign minister. We have a position and we stated it unequivocal. We just stated it bluntly, plainly, and it's for China to accept it, right? And we have said that relationships cannot be exclusive in the sense that you cannot say, okay, I'll have commerce only and not, you know, I will continue to do what I want to do in the NAC, right? Nothing is normal. Everything has to be normal in all domains. So I think we are doing well. Let's see what how it pans in the next couple of months because these are very important months, like you rightly said. A number of visits, there will be meetings with among the world leaders, and Mr. Modi will be attending that. So let's see how it pans out.
The factor that the Chinese would have planned this standoff for a certain amount of time, considering that, okay, we'll send the message within 6 months, 8 months, 1 year, be done with it. It's now 3 years. And today's geopolitics for China is also interesting, sir, because they also realize that they could be standing alone very shortly. How do the Chinese now, as you said, they can't back off because it will be a defeat for them. How do the Chinese get out of this, sir? Or do they want to get out of this, firstly?
No, first we have to see whether they want to get it or not. I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure. Right. And if they want to get out, they'll get out at a point of time or they choosing. Right. We can't go to, we can't have skirmishes over it. China's not going to go to war over it. Nor are we going to go over it. Physically, also, I don't think China can push us back or we can push China back. It's a lot of costs involved to nuclear armed nations, to growing, to emerged powers actually developed. We are emerged powers, risen powers, responsible powers. China may not be responsible, we are responsible. So I think the status quo, what's happening right now, will continue, and let's see who tires first. The fatigue will set in. You see, we already had our deployment. We have increased our deployment in terms of percentage, definitely. But if you look at our deployment, which has been there, we had a defensive deployment along the India-China border. It's always been there. Right? And we had enhanced it in 2009-10 when we put in two more defensive divisions in the east. We enhanced our capacities in eastern Ladakh also after 2013 DIPSA. Right? We built in a strike core. We carried out strategic rebalancing. So we have done all that. Now, China also has to pay cost for it. If you look at it, China's deployment has also increased. they have paid cost for it. So let's see who China can sustain. I'm not saying China will not sustain, it can sustain it, but then China was winning call. It's becoming vulnerable. It is internal turmoil. Everyone talks of the Doklam Plateau. China is being dead. Well, China is vulnerable out there. I've been there. I've done tenures there, and he's definitely vulnerable. We occupy the heights. We occupy the ridges. So it's not that he just comes and sits down and then he threatens us.
Hmm.
We have abilities and we have other means to make sure that he doesn't do what he wants to do. That is the threat. No, we have to mitigate the threat, to mitigate the risk, and that is exactly what we are doing. And China has to now understand that how long can it bear the cost of not only along the LAC, but then we have to build capabilities, dominate the seas, dominate the locks, Andaman Nicobar, the Nicobar Islands. They are great assets which we have. And we are building the Island Development Authority, is investing quite heavily into it. So we are building capability and capacity which China is watching. And our neighborhood, which the space which China denied us, is getting back. If you look at it, Sri Lanka, Maldives, uh, Bhutan, Nepal to an extent, Myanmar, Bangladesh also. So the neighborhood first policy is taking some time, but then China's containment of India is not as much as it thought it would be able to do. Our neighborhood is still our neighborhood, and we have to be part of the South Asian region. We also have Western going, so things are going well. And let's see. But main thing is, how do we now get China to back to status quo ante? We should not in a hurry to do it. It's a game of patience. It's a long game, and we should play a long game. We should play long, think deep, and not in a hurry. Negotiations don't take place in a hurry. We should not show any vulnerability that look because of our public pressure we want to do it. And public pressure is all in the mind space, and that's what China is doing. Unfortunately, we cannot access Chinese mind space. It is denied to everyone, right? We are a democracy. Anyone can put anything on the on any of the social media, newspaper, TV channels, 1,000 TV channels. You can put anything out there. There are YouTube channels. All are not as responsible as your channel. Right? So people can be, they can be
Yeah.
brainwashed, they can be
Yeah. Yeah.
bought. So that things can happen. So it's a question of we being mature, we being responsible as a people, as a society, as a nation.
So, you know, the move that China made with India was more of a strategic move. In the long term, they wanted to keep India at a certain level. And but one thing is there is if you look back into history, and I'm not trying to be an apologist here, but if you look back into history, for example, the times when during the America US China rapprochement that happened, Henry Kissinger had given a lot of the details of the Indian deployment of during 1971 to the Chinese on a platter. And then till almost 1975, 76, they were still supplying this information to the Chinese. But the Chinese never took advantage of that. The Chinese didn't take advantage during, 99. There were some not attacks, but there were some streamlining stuff that was done, but it was not very significant. After that, you had 10, 12 years of relative peace between both the countries where, the CBMs, as per se, kind of built up. Now, here is a China who, for whatever reasons of its own, made a strategic move, acting tactically on the line of actual control. We are fighting China strategically, yes, sir. But is it time today that we take the battle tactically back to China, or is this a factor that the way that we are handling it in a larger perspective, a whole of country approach rather than just just a border-based military control, military approach? What do you see as the Indian policy? And as a lot of people keep asking, sir, why don't we do stuff tactically to China on the border itself?
Okay, two things. One, China did not take advantage, 71, 99, all that. Didn't take that. China's support to the Northeast insurgencies is all the way. Okay, we keep blaming China for it, but it's on the way. It's not there as much as people talk about it. It's not, and well, it can come up anytime. It's not. Talking of, I think tactically operationally and strategically, in all three domains, we are equal to China, if not better. People find it very funny. China along the LAC is doing this, and we are not doing this. No, sorry, these are perceptions. We have stood up to China. There are a couple of places still left to be resolved. It does not mean that we cannot do another Kailash. It does not mean that we cannot do another QPQ. We have shown up, we have demonstrated will, we have demonstrated intent, we have demonstrated capabilities. China has got the right signals. That if he can play the game, we can play the game the same way. It's a mountains are mountains. Mountains it are close to the law is a very old philosophy. So he cannot guard every inch of it. We cannot guard every inch of it. So there are open spaces out there which can be taken advantage of either side. Fortunately, both have maintained a very balanced view, equilibrium after the April-May thing, and we have tried to resolve it through talks, military talks, diplomatic talks, the CPMs, and I think we have to continue with it. Like I said, game of patience. We should not get too perturbed about two odd places left to work. We resolve. Where's the hurry? So long took 6.5 years. I keep repeating that. So we should not in a hurry. We should look at other domains. We should look at ways to make sure China's aggressive behavior is, we deter China's aggressive behavior. We got to, China respects strength and we got to build strength, build capabilities, face up to China, stand up to China. And that's exactly what we are doing. In a diplomatic domain, if you see the statement of the Raksha Mantri, very categorical. This has to be there. It's not that, very categorical. Look at the foreign minister's conference was still on to the second day. But what comes out of it, the sense that comes out of it, that we are being very assertive and we are being very blunt and straightforward. That's what it should be.
See, one thing, yeah, I mean, we can say that the Indian stand towards the entire game has been pretty consistent in the sense we've said right from day one that you need to go back. That's it. But the Chinese stand has shifted, sir. Uh, it has been from, oh, there's aggression from Indian side. It was all blamed on us right at the beginning. If you look at the news that came out of Chinese media in April, May, June 2020, post Galwan, it was a sense of okay, let's kind of figure this out. Clashes happened and this and that. There was obviously that propaganda that Indian soldiers are weak and this and that. All that was aside, but the analysts talked about let's meet halfway, sort this out. Uh, then the disengagement happened. Then you had relative similarity for the next year and a half, and then you had Yangtze again. Yangtze was quiet. The Chinese media was absolutely silent, not aggressive. It posed it as the Indians came, did something aggressive, and went back, but it didn't really highlight it that much. So we've seen the Chinese narrative changing in comparison to the Indian narrative. Indian narrative has been standard. Boss, go back to your place, get the forces back into their barracks or wherever they came from, and then let's talk. What does this changing Chinese narrative, where they've had to come up with these dialogues, normalized border management control, this, that. We don't have any such dialogues. We just say, boss, go back to your place. That's it. What does this tell you, sir, with regards to the Chinese thought process today? Have they now realized that we are stuck?
I would say that. See, even if they are, we should not believe it.
Okay.
There is a trust deficit. What China says should never be believed. Okay. You have to believe yourself. Trust yourself. Trust your capabilities. That's what I keep saying. Let's not trust what China say, what India says. Well, we deal with it. Yes, we talk, and the talks go on for 10, 12 hours. That's the Chinese way of doing things, doing business. Right? We stay firm. The bottom person meetings, they go on for 10 hours, 8 to 10 hours. Up and down, up and down, up and down. But that is their way. Fine. We'll play the game their way when it comes to talks. But there's no way that I'll trust him. Sorry. That trust is not going to be there. I'll be a fool to trust what China says. I have to see, and the armed forces especially, we have to understand the worst scenarios. What is the worst that can happen? And prepare for that, worst scenarios. Not the optimum, not the best scenarios. Okay, these are scenarios. Okay, China will go back, China will not go back, China will do this, will do that. No, I have to prepare for all contingencies, and I have to make sure that peace through preparedness. Data China through preparedness. Keep talking. Absolutely don't talk. Keep talking keep talking. But show your strengths at the tactical level, at the operational level, at the strategic level, at the diplomatic level, be talk straight. Military level, talk straight. Tell them this is what it is, status quo ante, or nothing else. Right? It's either status quo ante or it's not there. And we are there, we will be there for 10 years. So what? I remember we had a face off once, and when talking about it, that the Chinese interpreter asked our chap, "This is how long do you think you can sustain out here?" He says, "My orders are either to die here or to retire from here. So I'm not going back." Okay, so I either retire from here or die here. So that's the two options I've got. So
What
he
was his
laughed.
reaction, sir?
After a couple of hours, they went back.
Yeah,
So that's our
stand up.
option. We'll be there.
So, the with again, my last question to you would be about looking after what is happening in the world today. If you see that the Russians are now saying, yeah, China and India are two major strategic partners. Uh, Somewhere down the line, the message isn't lost on China that, yeah, boss, if I need to win this geopolitical game, I can't have India against me. I'll have issues with my growth. I'll have issues with my geopolitical power. Although I have done enough damage in terms of Pakistan, this, that, everything. But now, how do I convince these Indians that, listen, yeah, I don't want to fight with you. I don't want to, this thing. But fair enough. We are having a tiff. Let's just keep it at the tiff. Let's not escalate it further. This would be a challenge that I see that the Chinese would be going through. That how do we communicate this to the Indians and keep this particular thing the way it is? We don't want to resolve it, which is evident, and we don't want it to escalate also. Is that what do you see that the Chinese thinking right now? Because again, I mean, Xi Jinping is coming in, and every time there's been a Xi Jinping interaction with anybody, there is some sort of a tension spark somewhere. So, will this be any different?
See, I don't think India can now go back and say, okay, no, let's get back to the old relation. It's not going to happen.
No.
Like on your channel, I said last time, what Galwan did was 650 million youth of India have started seeing China as not an adversary, but as an enemy.
Enemy, yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, you and me talk about China as adversary, but the youth now talk about China as enemy. They're very happy when Chinese app is banned. They're very happy if the Chinese patakas don't come to Diwali, if the Chinese toys don't come. Things have changed, and that is the groundswell I'm talking about. And India will have to go with the groundswell. And why should I trust the Chinese in any case? From 86 onwards, right up to 2020, things were improving. Things were improving. You look at it, things were improving. We had so many agreements. There was a lot of travel between India and China. There was tourism which is paying up. Things were improving. But China was becoming a friend of India, and we had coordination, we had cooperation, we had commerce. And suddenly, when this happens, now how do I trust China? China can say whatever it wants to say, but it has to, it has to walk the talk. So it has to first, it has to agree, it has to de-escalate, then it has to de-induct.
Hmm.
Okay. After it de-inducts, we see what happens there after take the relationship forward. But to say that we will back China in the next geopolitical game, no. Why should I back China? Why should I back USA? Why should I back anyone else? I should back myself.
Absolutely.
And that India, my interest take priority over everyone else. This,
Absolutely.
balance of power game is fine. I'll play the balance of power game, but I'll play as per my national interest, my interest. I'm not going to say China, but China will do this and China can do nothing. What can China do? Nothing very much.
The mostly that what we see coming out of China today is a very balanced sort of an affair. We didn't see that during COVID. They put out these cartoons with an elephant with a drip and this and that. So it was out to offend India. Today, when you look at South China Morning Post, you look at China Daily, they talk about Ayurveda, they talk about benefits of yoga, they talk about all these kind of things, which is very interesting to me that they are also trying to balance themselves out. And we both know that, Chinese media, there's nothing which will come out without a particular reason or without somebody's tacit approval saying that this is it. It's interesting that the Chinese have, tried to at least move the narrative in a way to project normalcy around the place, although which is far from the reality, but at least they're trying. And that's the whole purpose which we wanted to understand. So thank you so much for helping us understand the factor that, yeah, they might just change their words, but don't believe a damn thing that they say. So that's, I think, the bottom line that I'm going to take away from this talk. So thank you so much. As always, it's
Thank
lovely
you.
to
I think
talk to you.
it's a very uncertain one. Let's see what happens in the next 3-4 months. Going to be very important. I hope something comes up positive. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, sir. We always look for, and that brings me to a parting thought that whenever we have a conversation like this, the one thing that one always tries to see is there a solution to the problem? Is there something? And the India-China talk always lands up at the same thing. It's the same, and it will be the same for the next coming some time. Let's hope for the best. Till then, sir. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much. Yeah.